June 13th, 2024 TAC Planning meeting. My name is Gina Mitico. I'm the chair of TAC Planning. I work for Dakota County. I think this is our first meeting back on our regular meeting schedule at 1 o'clock. Previously had been delayed at 1:30 to accommodate the TPP Technical Work Group, which held its last meeting last month. So from here on out, we will be meeting at 1 o'clock. So thanks everyone for joining us. With that, I will call for approval of the agenda, which doesn't require a vote. Sorry, Jed, I always kind of forget about how we do this one.
Correct.
So it is just approved by statement, without unless anyone has any additions or modifications to propose. Okay, hearing none, we will approve the agenda. The next item on the agenda is a roll call item, and it is the approval of the March 14th, 2024 TAC Planning minutes. That was the last time we met a couple months ago. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review those, and I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Howley.
Motion from Howley, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second from Ashley Morello.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. We have a second. And with that, I'll please signify by saying aye with the roll call vote.
Just call for discussion first.
Oh, call for discussion. Thank you. Any discussion or modifications? Okay, seeing none. Jed, can you take the roll then?
Yes. Jack Forsland, Anoka County. Dan Ruiz, Brooklyn Park.
I'll have to abstain. I was absent from that meeting. I had an alternate attend. Thanks.
Whitney Schroeder, Carver County.
I was on the last meeting as well.
Charlie Howley, Chanhassen.
Aye.
Gina Mitico, Dakota County.
Aye.
Ashley Morello, Hennepin County.
Aye.
Bridget Reef, MAC. Patrick Boylan, Community Development. David Burns, MTS.
Aye.
Patrick Haney, Metro Transit.
Aye.
Kathleen Mayell, City of Minneapolis.
Aye.
Lindsay Brewer, MnDOT.
Will abstain. I was absent for the meeting.
Innocent Ao, MPCA. Kevin Roggenbuck, Ramsey County. Bill Dermody, St. Paul. Terry Dill, Scott County. Terry, I heard you, or I saw you come off mute, but I didn't hear a vote.
Aye.
Grace Almeida, Suburban Transit.
Aye.
Elaine Katsukos, Tab.
Aye.
Sarah Allen, Washington County.
Aye.
Chris Hartzell, Woodbury.
Aye.
And any members I may have missed. Chair, the motion carries with 11 ayes, no noes, and 3 abstentions.
Thanks, Jed. The next item is any public comment on committee business. Do we have any members of the public present? Or Jed, did anyone register with you via email ahead of time?
No, we do not.
Okay. Thank you. Moving along, then we have our first business item, which is the much anticipated release of the draft 2050 Transportation Policy Plan for public comment. And this is an item to approve this release. We are the first step in that process. And Cole, do you have a presentation to pull up?
I don't, but maybe Jed, I'll just take over sharing just so I can jump around a little bit. So yeah, there is an action item and all the content is listed. I'm going to walk through a couple of pieces of the action item just for your all's benefit if you didn't get a chance to review it. The recommended motion today is that we recommend the release of the draft 2050 TPP for public review and comment. And I would note, if the committee wants to submit any comments along with that action, you can always propose that as part of your motion. I think we probably would want to have some discussion ahead of proposing a motion. So I'll let Chair Hiniker facilitate that. Most of you probably know that the TPP is required under state and federal law. And this is considered the every 10 years update. So this is a big update. It's both meeting the federal and the state requirements. I think a lot of you, if not almost all of you, are on the TPP technical working group, but we do have a summary of the phases of the TPP development and the groups that we included to help advise on the content and the process we went through. So there's a good discussion there. And then this paragraph here in the middle on 2050 TPP public comment release purpose. So I wanted to note those bullets in the middle there, that there are some things that might result in changes to this version of the TPP ahead of the public comment release. So some things that might influence that are there's committee comments. So if you guys were to forward committee comments and we tried to address those ahead of TAC or TAB or the Met Council, there could be some tweaks. Any coordination with language alignment with, I imagine, 2050 and its other system plans. We're limiting that to not changing any policy direction, but if there's, language corrections for how we describe things to be consistent with other plans, there could be some tweaks there. And then corrections to errors or additions of content that was not ready. You might see in some of the chapters, there's graphic placeholders, things like that. There might be some maps. As those get finished, we're going to add those, but we tried to make sure to note where those would be. And so there should be placeholders for anything that we end up adding. The last note is that there is one document that is not ready yet. That's the environmental justice analysis. That's sort of a hard thing to do until the very end, and because you have to use the plan's investments to do it. So we're still working furiously to get that complete, and we hope to have that ready for TAC meeting on July 3rd. But just note that that is the one document that's considered part of the entire TPP that's missing. We also are working on an interactive map that will have a lot of the same information as the TPP. We might be able to put that out for public comment. And so just a note that there might be a map that you can interact with, but all of the data will be consistent with what we're sharing in the more static version. This staff analysis section includes some feedback that we received both from the technical working group, which is a lot of you, and from the advisory work group on the process and some of the pros and cons of how the TPP development went. And so that's the business item. As I noted here, we can put committee comments and we'll put the action today in this TBD section as it moves to TAC. And I wanted to also note that we are going to send a note to TAB and TAC after today's meeting about the outcome of today, and also to give them early access to the draft chapters that you all saw, just in case they wanted to start looking at them ahead of their meetings. With that, I'm going to actually show a few things about the TPP that might have changed from earlier drafts that you all saw. Primarily in this, what we're calling the overview, or what will become a chapter in Imagine 2050, which is the Regional Development Guide. So some of you might note that we shared 5 chapters that were structured around the regional goals. And we actually incorporated all that content into this Imagine 2050 chapter on transportation. So these sections on approach to goals have a lot of the content that you reviewed where we introduce the objectives. We talk about the policies that are associated with that goal, the work program item, and then some of the context around the topic, definitions, why the issue is important trends. And so some of this is slimmed down from the versions you saw, because we did get feedback from some TAB and Met Council members that it was too long and it was too much context, but we tried to do that based on the feedback we received. So just a note that that's where that content ended up. Trying to get back to the introduction here. The other pieces that are new here are a lot of context. What is the TPP? What is fiscal constraint? What is the transportation planning cycle that the council goes through? Engagement and plan development process is a lot of the content that's actually in that business item. We did summarize the investments and funding that pulled a lot of information from the finance chapter at a more high level, a couple of pages that summarize the major investment assumptions, and then a couple of notes on plan requirements. So the majority of this content is context that you didn't review, or it was content that was included as part of other chapters. And just really quick to jump to the finance section, one of the things that we got some internal feedback on was that none of the other system plans have what we call our separate modal plans. And so we wanted to make sure that to create that connection between the Imagine 2050 chapter and all of those supplemental materials, which we're now calling them, that are the system plans or investment plans. So we added a section that really tied out, what are the role of those investment plans? What are the major topics in them? And where can you find them? So these will be future links once the plan becomes more interactive and online. But this document is the biggest, most significant change from any of the versions you saw. And so I wanted to just cover it, but just noting that you did actually review the majority of the content that's not context related. Back to this too, there's some what used to be called appendices in the TPP are now just documents that are associated with specific investment plans. So the highway investment plan has a functional class, which used to be Appendix D, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Preliminary interchange approval process was Appendix F. Congestion management process was a separate chapter. Transit design and performance guidelines was Appendix G. And then the aviation supporting information was actually Appendices, I think the 4 at the very end. So a lot of the same content from the 2040 TPP is transferred over, but we just aren't structuring it in quite the same chapter appendix structure as we did before. So with that, would welcome any questions. I know it's been a lot of information. You guys have been along, but we're sort of throwing you a few new pieces here. And so any questions that you have, or if Chair Medico, if you want to facilitate any conversation about the motion and thoughts that folks might have, but this is really the only thing on the agenda today, so we have as much time as we need.
Thanks, Cole. Kathleen?
I had a question, but if you wanted to facilitate differently, go ahead first.
No, I was going to first open it up to questions and then see if there was any potential discussion or comments.
Okay,
Go ahead,
thank you.
Kathleen.
Thanks. Cole, I skimmed around a little bit, but clearly haven't dug in everywhere. I'm just wondering, in the context of all the work going on right now with regional solicitation and the bigger regional solicitation update piece, is there pieces of this plan that talk or tie to or direct or give, what I mean, or directly saying, hey, here's how to influence some of that stuff based on these regional policies that are now in this plan document?
Yeah, so two things that we tried to do there. Number one, in the policies and actions, which is, replacing the strategies from the 2040 TPP, we have what we call action tags, and those tags relate to the process that those actions are supposed to influence. And if you go into that document, one of the action tags is investment priorities. It used to actually be regional solicitation, but we broadened it because it can influence things like MnDOT funding or transit provider funding. And so that is really a subset of actions that the solicitation evaluation is going to start from to say, all right, we got direction from the 2050 TPP to use these actions for investment priorities. So we're going to start from that list. Doesn't mean they have to use them all. It's just a recommendation. The other thing that some of the chapters do have, specific acknowledgments that things like the CMSP has been used in the solicitation in the past, and there's recommendations that we keep using those priority networks or priority investment lists Again, they're just recommendations. The regional solicitation will assess as it does its evaluation how to incorporate those. And we actually intend to come back and do an update or an amendment to the TPP, depending on how the solicitation evaluation ultimately ends up, to clean up any ties or any connections between the two. So it was left a little bit ambiguous to allow the solicitation some flexibility. And we acknowledge that, but it does give some direction, particularly in the policies and actions. And I know that Steve has already taken that list and started to share that with the consultant that's working on that project.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Cole? Does anyone have any comments or discussion or potential? Cole mentioned the potential of adoption with any suggestions or amendments. Did anyone see anything in their review that they would like to suggest? Bill?
Nothing to suggest, just a comment. I would recognize, and staff has recognized this as well, tension sometimes with congestion relief versus some of our other regional goals. I think you've done a pretty good job of trying to add nuance to the policies here to recognize that, so that we aren't, strictly trying to relieve congestion at all costs, because oftentimes we're trying to add density to corridors that are congested for good reason. It's there are land use goals attached with that, and I think the focus that's been put more on accessibility, and then a congestion management process that goes through a hierarchy that doesn't automatically expand as the first, second, or third option, and really tries hard to address congested corridors in a different way. I think that's all positive, but I do still see congestion relief as a goal in at least the CMP, if not directly in the TPP. And so that tension could remain. So I think you've done a pretty good job of trying to work through that, but I am concerned with how it's going to be implemented. So I would just highlight that as something to keep an eye on as we move forward. And if there are ideas for further refining our approach on that, I'd certainly be open to it. But just a recognition and the pat on the back too for doing a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, Chairman Hiniker, if I could respond. I think you're right, and one of the things I didn't say was at the beginning was just that we did try to get more strategic with this plan. I think we definitely succeeded in some areas. We have a plan that's much more upfront about climate change. I think it's addressing equity and natural resources better, safety better, but there's definitely still some areas of, I don't want to say conflict, but maybe like you're saying, inconsistency. And I think it's a plan that everyone can see themselves in, but it doesn't try to do everything like our last plan did. It does give something to every part of the region, be able to say, I can see ourselves in this plan. This is just my perspective. If you disagree, feel free to weigh in, but that's what we were trying to strike, that balance. And I think you're right, Bill, that's just going to happen naturally with a diverse region like we have, but I appreciate the comments that you saw that effort that we were trying to do in that area.
Any other comments or thoughts? Cole, I had a question maybe just about, there are a couple of items. There was one thing I was looking at in the highway chapter about, we just talked about greenhouse gas emissions, and it references the 2023 legislation that was passed. And I believe that was amended slightly this last session. Would that be kind of covered in the things that you talked about that could change between now and the public release? Or is that something you feel is handled generally enough that you don't need to kind of amend?
Yeah, there is one area, and thank you for bringing that up. And Amy might want to chime in here, but there is an area where the state is required to set a GHG emissions target for the metropolitan area. So MnDOT is taking the lead on that. They don't anticipate having any kind of proposed target ahead of the public comment release. So we're anticipating them submitting some sort of public comment that says, here is the target that you should include in the plan, and then we'd amend it or add it as part of the public comment edits. So that's just a timing issue, but it is a process that they're working on, and I believe we're talking with them, I think, tomorrow to talk about the schedule and how we can bring some of that through the committee as they're working on it, because it's really their product that we'll incorporate. But that's the biggest change that we're expecting to make. I think all of the rest of the stuff is pretty consistent with any of the language changes that were made this session. So just, I don't know, Amy, if you want to add anything to that.
I think you covered it pretty well. Maybe a little personal opinion here. It is a little awkward because MnDOT is the entity that has the authority to set the regional sub-allocation for GHG. And while they're required to coordinate with us, they're not required to listen to us, so we don't have a lot of ability to control what comes out of that process. I think we're doing our best to coordinate with them and to understand what their engagement process is going to be. And but when they give us the sub-allocation expected end of September, they'll give it in the form of a public comment, and then we will add that into the plan. And open to any additional ideas on that, but it kind of feels like, I mean, we could not put it in the plan, but it still is under state law a requirement for MnDOT to have this for us in the metro area. So to me, it makes sense to be more transparent with it and have it be part of the transportation policy plan. And likely the regional development guide will refer to it in some manner too.
Thanks. I was also thinking about, so I think the previous language in 2023 was about specific projects had to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, and now it's a portfolio or a program, I believe is how the definition changed, which to me kind of speaks to either MnDOT's program or the TPP or TIP. So I didn't know if that was needed any further clarification, or maybe it's too new yet to kind of figure out how that will impact kind of whole programs of projects. But to me, it seemed like it took it from the project level to the planning level, which is kind of more directly relevant to something like a TPP. But
yeah, well, I can say that the TPP is still recommending that projects assess their GHG emissions impact at the project level, but it's not necessarily saying you have to. So I think it's flexible enough to incorporate that change at the state level. And I know that we were fairly deferential to the state process, because I think, during a lot of the development that the committee that was talking about it was still meeting, and now there's a recommendation to have a committee do even more work on it. So I do think that's probably going to have to be an amendment down the road if there's any significant changes that come out of that more technical statewide process. So good catch that we should maybe be upfront about that.
thanks. I think Kathleen had her hand up. Kathleen, is your comment about this specific topic, or did you have something else?
Well, it's
Okay.
related. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
I support putting that greenhouse gas reduction piece from the state into the plan and amending that in. I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of what you were saying, Amy. A related question, and again, my apologies, I haven't read the entire thing or near close to it yet. But will you be having like any quantitative statements about VMT or qualitative statements about VMT reduction or mode shift accompanying that greenhouse gas piece?
Yeah, so the one area that we do have a target is that the plan does say that by 2050 we reduce VMT per capita by 20% below 2019 levels. And that's in our objectives. And so that was consistent with the state SMTP, statewide multimodal transportation plan numbers. And that's really the only place where we have a numeric target right now. So we don't have anything specific to mode shift as a target, but we do talk about the idea of making those modes more attractive, you know. So I think there is an opportunity to maybe develop a target over time, but there's nothing in this draft for that mode split piece.
Okay, thanks for directing to that piece. Thanks. Check that out.
Tony, did you have your hand up as well?
Chair members, my name is Tony Fisher, Transportation Planner at MTS. And I think, Chair, to your question, I think you're right. There is an informational paragraph in the highway chapter about the greenhouse gas assessment requirements that we'll just want to double check. I don't think it was intended to be informational and reflect statutes, so there might be some small updates that are needed.
Thanks.
So maybe just a reflection there. If you wanted to have a motion that said double check language against any statute changes in 2024, we'd welcome that, because I think we did a pretty good job, but if we missed anything, that would just give us the availability to double check it ahead of TAC.
Okay, thank you. I would be open to that. I don't know if there are other examples. I didn't do an exhaustive analysis of what changed in legislation, but that was something we were looking at internally, so it caught my eye. But
yeah, I think that one of our staff noted there was another change to how the zero emission bus transition requirements were set out by the state. So there could be some tweaks we could make there as well. But we can double check a few different areas. It all did kind of come together late for us, so it was hard to incorporate it into this draft.
any other thoughts on that topic? Do folks feel like it needs a motion or to be added to ask staff to look at that, or do we feel comfortable that it's generally covered?
I'm comfortable, but I'm not sure. I'm not the best person procedurally to be asked about this, but sort of part of this group, but a little bit of an outsider. So I'm comfortable with staff proceeding. So please overrule me if this is not the proper protocol.
Yeah, and Chair Hiniker, I might just suggest that, you know, a motion that just says review for this one specific piece is fine. I mean, that's helpful for us. It just gives us some flexibility. And I wouldn't try to say like review it for this, only this piece of legislation, because that really hamstrings us. So if we just review it, we say it looks good, then we can just report to TAC that we did review it and it looked good. And that's not a hard thing for us to do. And if we do any tweaks, we can certainly provide that update to TAC as well.
Okay. Would anyone like to make that motion?
Sure, I will.
Okay.
So moved.
Who was that? Was that Patrick?
Patrick. Yeah.
Sorry, everybody got really small on my screen. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Was that Lindsay? Did you call?
Minda will second.
Okay, thank you. Patrick and Lindsay, we have a motion and a second, which would be to ask staff to review the draft to ensure that language is consistent with recent changes to legislation. Is that generally what we would be asking? Cole, Jed, is that clear enough?
Yeah, maybe looking for Amy or other procedural advice. Did you guys want to do some separate motions for individual comments and then take it all as a recommend to release for public comment draft after that? Or do you want to have kind of try to wrap up all of the comments and then put it into one motion?
I will suggest whatever is cleanest, and staff may have better expertise on that, because I suppose if we ask for this now, then we are asking for also the whole motion to approve with these conditions, and we haven't really talked about any other issue other than this one. So I don't know if there are other issues out there that we might want to add.
would recommend separate motions. So a separate motion for this action, and then any other additional actions, and then a separate motion for recommending approval of the TPP. But Jed, you probably know Robert's rules a little better than me. So.
Well, I didn't have motion language, so I think we need to do that again. But I will suggest that we separate these into different motions. One is staff directive, and then as we proceed, we can vote on release of the plan. But here's the language I would suggest. Move to direct staff to review the draft 2050 transportation policy plan for consistency with recent legislative changes.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Jed. So then we would vote on this motion only unless there's further discussion, correct? Okay, any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask Jed to take, go ahead, Jed.
I need someone to move and second it now that we've stated the language.
Stated the language more clearly, okay.
Move, that's fine, I'll move that.
Okay, so we have a motion from Patrick.
I'll second Kathleen.
And Kathleen with a second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, and then I will ask Jed to take a roll call vote. All those in favor state aye when your name is called. Thank you.
Jack Forsland.
Aye.
Dan Rees.
Aye.
Whitney Schroeder.
Aye.
Charlie Howley.
Aye.
Gina Mitico.
Aye.
Ashley Morello.
Aye.
Bridget Reef. Patrick Boylan.
Aye.
David Burns.
Aye.
Patrick Haney.
Aye.
Kathleen Mayall.
Aye.
Lindsay Brewer.
Aye.
Innocent Ao. Kevin Roggenbuck. Bill Dermody.
Aye.
Terry Dill.
Aye.
Grace Almeida.
Aye.
Elaine Katsukos.
Aye.
Sarah Allen.
Aye.
Chris Hartzell.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes with 17 ayes.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone have any other comments, questions, things they want to bring up?
Just a question, if I could, Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
So process-wise, after the public review and comment, which committees or boards does this go through? I assume at least the full Metropolitan Council, but who else?
Sorry, good question. The committee after the public comment period, right? That's what your question was.
Well, yeah, I see this, but I guess I'm wondering where the public comment period ends within this and who sees it afterwards, just in case a good comment arises that requires a significant change.
Yeah, so the public comment process will wrap up in early October. We didn't specify the dates for that when we were reporting out some of this because it is dependent on the types of comments we get, how many edits we have to make. But it is required to go back to TAB for recommendation for final adoption, and then to the Transportation Committee, and then to the Met Council. We generally do try to do information items to TAC Planning and TAC on the nature of the comments and some of our responses, but they are not part of the final recommendation process. What we tentatively have scheduled, just for FYI for the TAB, would be to do an information item when we have the comments summarized and some of our proposed responses at one meeting, and then whether it takes a meeting or two after that to finally bring the action to them after we get feedback. It'll sort of be a two-step process. We'll try to do the same thing with the council. So that's all, I would say roughly from October to February. The tentative date we have scheduled for final adoption is February. That gives us that time to work through all the comments, produce a summary reports, have discussions about them, and then take action.
Thank you. That's helpful.
And I would also note the public comment period that starts on August 15th will include all of the council system plans together. They're all being released as a package.
Thanks, Cole. That's helpful. Any other questions or comments? All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to recommend that the draft update to the 2050 Transportation Policy Plan be released for public review and comment with the, well, Jed, I guess I don't know, is that a standalone item or does it have to include the edits we previously voted on?
It doesn't need to.
Okay. So just that statement then, that we recommend the draft update of the 2050 Transportation Policy Plan be released for public review and comment.
So moved.
All right, we have Patrick again with the motion. Anyone with a second?
That, Reese, Brooklyn Park.
All right, thanks, Stan. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Did somebody? Nope. Seeing no additional discussion, then I will ask Jed to call the roll.
Jack Forsland.
Aye.
Dan Ruiz.
Aye.
Whitney Schroeder.
Aye.
Charlie Howley.
Aye.
Gina Medico.
Aye.
Ashley Morello.
Aye.
Bridget Reef. Patrick Boylan.
Aye.
David Burns.
Aye.
Patrick Haney.
Aye.
Kathleen Mayall.
Aye.
Lindsay Brewer.
Aye.
Innocent Ao. Kevin Roggenbuck. Bill Dermody.
Aye.
Terry Dill.
Aye.
Grace Almeida.
Aye.
Elaine Katsukos.
Aye.
Sarah Allen.
Aye.
Chris Hartzell.
Aye.
Chair, there were 17 ayes, no noes, and no abstentions.
All right, thanks everyone. Thanks staff for a really thorough process. We talked about this at length at the last TPP work group meeting, but just want to state again here that I know it's been a lot of work for staff to get all these drafts out, to revise them. It was nice to see the final product with all the graphics and images. I think it looks really good. And also to the committee members who have spent a lot of time reading a lot of material and commenting on it. So definitely a big effort by everyone. So wanted to thank everyone for that.
Chair, so if I can just recap, we will send a meeting then to TAC and TAB, or sorry, a email that notes the approval of this action, and we'll note the comment that you all added just so that they can see what we might be addressing. Share the link with all the files. You all can track those meetings. July 3rd is the TAC meeting. July 17th is the TAB meeting. And then just to put on your calendars, August 15th is the official open of the public comment, pending any potential complications, but that's when it will be officially out there for you all to start compiling your comments. You can certainly start earlier if you want, though. And thank you all.
Thanks, Cole. Okay, back to the agenda. We do not have any information items. In other business, I believe Jed had something he wanted to mention.
Yes, there was a technical glitch with the calendar invites, and we're not able to cancel the series after this month. So if you could kindly remove the half-hour TAC planning meetings from your calendar from July onward, we'll be sending a fresh invite with a new Teams link to use.
Thanks, Jed. Any other business? Okay. Seeing none, then we will be adjourned. Thanks, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you.